What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the hidden things that top 1% of salespeople do that is typically just not taught. And a lot of times they're not even aware that they're doing them. But I've listened to thousands of sales calls and I've trained some of the largest wholesaling companies in the country. And I've recognized some patterns that separate the top 1% from the rest. If you're new to this channel, all we do is we talk about how to get individual wholesaling companies to 100K a month, and then how to get individual reps to 100K a month so they can hit multiple seven figures per year. So today I'm going to be talking about why you might be getting answers like, why is that relevant? Or why you might have a seller being agreeable to you, but then they don't close, or why your sales calls might sound a little cringy. So if you've ever asked a question like, well, how's that going to feel? It's going to sound weird. And a lot of times the sellers, they pick up on that. They're like, why are you asking that question? So I'm going to show you how to get the answer that you want without sounding like a complete weirdo. The first thing that we're going to be talking about is framing your questions. So I'll give you two examples. One, let's say, if you look at any of the process that we teach, some of the questions might feel weird if you ask them the wrong way. If you say, okay, so walk me through, how much do you need in your pocket to be able to get X, Y, and Z? Seller says, well, I don't know. That's not really relevant. I'll tell you what I want. Whereas if I frame my question the right way, it will make sense why I'm asking it and I'll get the desired answer. So one of the things that top closers know is it's not about the question that you ask. You can ask a bunch of good questions. It's about the answers you get. Sometimes you might skip over questions because you've already got the answer. And a lot of the newer sales reps are the newer closers when they're learning. They'll ask a question that they already have the answer to, and then they just sound retarded. I'll give you an example of the needs. I might say something like, hey, look, at the end of the day, my goal is to be able to help you get to Atlanta with your family in the next 30 days. Now, to make sure that I can actually help you with that, what is it that you need in your pocket to be able to put down on that next property? I'm framing that question. That's just one example of me framing a question on a need. Let's say I'm about to get into deal killers or obstacles. Instead of me just asking something like, okay, well, what's going on with your stuff? Or what's your timeline? Or what are you looking for out of the transaction? All of those questions are going to be weird. They're not going to land. I might say, hey, and a lot of times the reason that people reach out to us and they want to work with us is we help with a lot more than just giving you a number on a piece of paper. Like the list goes on, but just to make sure that we can help you in the best way, help me understand. And then I might ask a question like an obstacles question. What are you planning on doing with all of your stuff? What do you feel like is going to get in the way of you selling the property? There's a million different questions I can ask, but the point I'm trying to make is how I frame the question. Even if I'm trying to frame a problem awareness question and I ask a question like, I want to get them in that emotional state. I want to get that emotional impact. I'm not just going to say, the whole like, well, what's that doing to you though? What is that actually doing to you? Unless I'm like really crushing my call and I have a ton of rapport, the seller's just like extremely open. Typically I have to frame that question. Gosh, I know if it was me and my family, I'd be extremely worried. What's that been like for you though? I'm going to frame it, right? If I frame it, it lands better. And so if you're ever getting responses from a seller, like, why is that question relevant? Or why are you asking? You just need to get really good at framing the question. If you frame the question the right way, it is apparent why you're asking it. And they're going to be a lot more likely to give you the answer that you really want. So that's step one. Step two is tonality versus state shifting. And this might sound weird if you don't know what I'm talking about, but up to this point, a lot of sales trainers are starting to teach tonality. No one taught it a couple of years ago, but now it's a lot more common that people are teaching tonality. The problem is you're trying to fake a tonality and it never works, right? It's like trying to fake being authentic. It's not possible. And so instead of focusing on how do I ask this question in the right way and role playing this, just shift your state. And here, I'll give you an example of that. I was talking to, I won't name who it is, but somebody I was talking to yesterday that had a pretty bad tragedy that happened to him. I asked them how they were doing. They were like, oh, it's, not the best. And then I was like, oh man, what's going on? When I saw the expression on this man's face, he said, well, I've been better. I could see the expression. I was like, okay, something's wrong with him. Let me ask of that. Now, this was not a sales call, by the way. This guy was actually helping me with something, but I didn't have to think about what should my tonality sound like when I'm asking this guy what's going on. Is he okay? Is there anything I can help him out with? And I wasn't like thinking about my tonality because this was somebody I knew and I could tell something was wrong with him. So this is something I just naturally did. I shifted into a concerned state, a concerned kind of curious state. Like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Are you okay? Can I help you with anything? And that's the difference between a really good closer and a bad closer. Is a bad closer might understand that they're supposed to ask something with an empathetic tone. But if you're faking an empathetic empathetic tone, the sellers pick up on that and they'll see it because you shift out of it really quickly. But if you can shift into a concerned state, if you can shift into a curious state, you're going to ask the right questions and the questions are going to sound more authentic, right? So if a seller opens up with a problem, you say, well, hold on, you've been doing this for the last 3 years. What came up recently that caused you to feel like, I don't know, you might want to sell now? Oh my gosh, it's just a lot. Hold on, it's a lot? How do you mean? Well, what's going on though? It's not that I'm faking the tonality. I'm just actually curious and I'm concerned for them, right? If a seller starts telling me their neighborhood is dangerous, I am going to shift into a concerned state. I'm automatically thinking in my head, do they have kids? Do they have family? Did anything happen to them? Are they okay? These are the things that are happening naturally. And it's the difference between someone that builds great rapport with the seller and that builds a lot of trust and someone that kind of did all the same things, but did not get the result, right? It's tonality versus state shifting. The last thing that we're going to talk about today is the specificity of questions, if that's a word. So what I mean by that is if you ask vague questions, you're going to get very vague answers. So I was working with one of my advanced students the other day, and he asked a question in the needs part. Well, how much do you need to move on from this? And the seller was kind of confused, right? Like, well, hold on. What are you asking specifically, right? Whereas top closers get very, very specific with the questions that they're asking because they know what result they're trying to get. I am trying to understand what does it take to solve that problem in that question, for example, in the needs question. I'm trying to understand if they're in a bad neighborhood right now and they want to move into a safer neighborhood, what is the minimum requirement that they need to be able to move into that next neighborhood? So then I might ask another question. I might ask you completely differently. I might say, okay, so walk me through. Are you going to be buying your next house? How much are you hoping to put down? Are you trying to put down like the minimum 3.5%, 5%? Okay, and how much do the houses cost? So what did you actually need in your pocket to put down on that next house? Completely different question than what did you need in your pocket to be able to move on from this? I'm getting specific, right? Another example is then problem awareness. So I did this exercise with my team earlier, and I would like for you guys to do this while you're listening, is think about a time, one of the worst times in your life, like you were about to tell a story about it. You're about to actually verbalize it. One of the toughest times that you've ever dealt with. Now, as you're thinking about that, your state shifts into like you're going to feel it, right? Maybe concerned, maybe stressed, whatever that feeling was that you felt back then, you're going to feel that. Now, think about the opposite. So think back to a core childhood memory or one of the best memories that you've had in your life. Maybe it was a trip that you went on, an experience that you had with your mom or your dad, maybe playing catch in the yard, going hunting, something like that, right? Now think about that like you were about to tell somebody that story. You're actually going to tell the story. Now, what state are you in now? You're in an excited state. And so I was doing this exercise with my team. As they're starting to tell me about their best memory, they're getting excited, but it's also like the detail that they're going in. So they're feeling it. I could tell they're starting to smile as they're talking about these things. And they're going into a lot of detail. And so the reason I bring that up is the more specific you can get with your questions with the seller, the more they're going to shift into that state, the more they're going to relive some of that pain or get excited about the future. So that way they do want to change at the end of their call. Nobody wants to change after answering a bunch of surface level questions like, tell me about the condition. Tell me what you have going on. What's your time frame? How much are you looking to get for it? It doesn't actually build any urgency. So yeah, you might get a couple of the laydowns if their asking price lines up with what you can buy it for, but you're not actually doing a sales process. You're really just asking them questions kind of like an order taker. So you want to get specific with your questions. If a seller tells me about a problem, I might ask him, can you give me an exact example of what you mean by that, just so I understand what's going on? Oh, well, it's this, and this. The more they start talking in specifics, the more they're going to start feeling it. So the difference between a really good closer and a bad one is how specific they get to go, how much detail they go in their conversation. So I'll listen to people that, are absolutely crushing it, and they're getting the sellers to talk about exactly what's happening, when the last time that happened, how often that's happened, how long that's been going on, what that's doing to them. Specificity, right? So exactly what's going on. And so if you're asking super vague questions, you are going to get super vague answers and you're not really pushing the sales call forward. So those are just 3 unconventional tips of things that we teach inside of our advanced group to help people go from maybe like good closers to absolute great closers and have much better, more productive conversations. So I'll drop a link as always in the chat so you guys can check out our advanced group, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye, everybody.